All right, guys, well, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us during the festivities. I know it's a busy week. My name's Christian Smith. I'm honored to be the CEO of Interactive Aerial. We are an unmanned aerial vehicle manufacturer based here in Traverse City. You might hear them referred to as UAVs, UAS, drones more commonly. So if you hear any of those, that's what we're talking about tonight. So really briefly, our team background, we're all just out of college. These three guys graduated out of NMC here at the UAV programs. I was in North Dakota at UND Aerospace. And our goal is to be one of the leading manufacturers of unmanned aerial vehicles in the industry. So briefly, awareness in the industry is gaining from unmanned aerial systems. A lot of things that you're used to seeing right now are like photography stuff, especially here in the local area, real estate things. There's just a lot of different applications for these things, but one of the big momentum changes is towards infrastructure inspection. So the industry is starting to really grow in a commercial market for applications in a wide variety of different places. Things like tank inspections, hull inspections for cargo ships, and really a wide variety of different things in the civil engineering market. You name it, there's a lot of places you're going to start seeing drones pop up. So how are they helping? They're saving a lot of people money, a lot of downtime for inspections traditionally done with humans. So we're really seeing this big progression towards saving time. A lot of safety concerns too. Some of these markets are not always so easily accessible, so drones are doing that a lot more simply. And then the biggest part is the convenient access to data. So that's really what people want. They don't really care that the drone's doing it. They care about the data at the end, which is really important. So zooming in a little bit on the infrastructure industry, we've really narrowed our focus to the petrochemical industry. There are a bunch of different operations that you could use a drone for, things such as flare stacks, pipeline inspections, storage tanks, and cooling towers are just a few to name it. But there's a growing concern with all of these things, and they all kind of have similar challenges. It's confined space flying. So you're flying inside of things, you have limited image qualities, you have poor lighting, often pitch black environments, and then you have this big concern about GPS connectivity because you're typically within tank, deep concrete, whatever it might be, and then obviously the unit, the concern of running into vehicles, or excuse me, running into different parts of the infrastructure with the vehicle. So with that, we believe we've manufactured the solution to a lot of those challenges, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the Legacy 1 that's sitting here on the table in front of you. Kind of hard to see that picture in here, but that's the vehicle with the light on. The yellow part to the left there is the light, about the size of a stamp. So this is flying in a set of tunnels about 40 feet underground, and there's the light. It is, all the lights are turned off in the tunnel, so definitely has a really good opportunity of lighting up its environments and being able to see the tough areas that it's hard to see without lights on traditional aircraft. So typically you show this if we don't have the vehicle with us, but it's with you here today. So how we've kind of addressed some of those challenges is the high payload camera. So we've got 42 megapixels off of the Sony camera that's up on front. We have the light up on the left that's about the size of a stamp. It's about 50 watt. We can go up to 100 watt. We just have the smaller light on it right now. We're using the navigation without GPS, and the virtual bumper will allow it to not collide with anything while it's in those GPS denied environments. So we're going to take the approach of a leasing model, something that hasn't been done in the unmanned systems industry before. It's allowing people to get continual upgrades to technology. Obviously that upfront cost is a lot more convenient, and then responsibility for the maintenance is shared here. So if you have a big issue, rather than buying the unit outright, you have the opportunity to come back and talk with us a little bit more, and we can get things fixed for you because we're sharing that responsibility. Another huge emphasis we're going to put on is training. So we're building a platform with multi-day options depending on what your experience level is. We're building it with UND Aerospace out in Grand Forks, and then here locally with NMC Aviation, both fantastic aerospace companies. And then SMS integration it's a fancy FAA term some of you may know, but we'll skip that part for now. So just briefly in conclusion, we're research and development. So we're exploring new technologies here in Traverse City. We're going to integrate those into our platforms with our manufacturing we keep here. and then have the opportunity to lease these out to our customers and then train them once that relationship has been built. So I was 3 seconds off. That wasn't bad.
All right, well, I'll kind of stay out of your guys' way and let you man the show there, but I'm sure that there are some folks in the audience with some questions for you.
Smart engineering kids, so you pick their brains.
Any questions?
Go ahead, sir.
Your technology to get inside of the container and not rely on GPS, is that proprietary?
As of right now, yes, it uses off-the-shelf proximity sensors, but the technology behind it, the integration of the algorithms and the hardware is proprietary. Yes.
Do you own that intellectual property?
We're currently seeking the intellectual property on the software and the that hardware design. Yes.
So I missed the part about UND Aviation. Who are they, and are you guys the designers and they're going to build for you, or how's the arrangement?
UND is a collegiate program, so it's training. So they're experts in the industry with unmanned training. So it's a college out in Grand Forks, North Dakota. That's where I just graduated from.
So you guys are going to make these yourselves, your company's going to build these?
Yep, and then we're seeking service providers that already exist out in the industry. So we don't hold the pilots on the team. We'll train people, but those people out that are used to the environments they'll be flying in, we'll be doing the servicing. Casey?
Is there anything unusual about what you've accomplished in terms of weight or how long it flies?
Yeah. So the vehicle was designed in such a way that we can maximize efficiency. Because we started from the ground up, we took a look at all of the different systems and see what the most optimal configuration was. So we're using lightweight composites. We're using very energy efficient motors. The lighting that Christian talked about is 50 watts versus 100 watts. That saves us on power consumption. So that's as bright, about equivalent to your car headlight. So a little bit overkill in some environments, but it's certainly an option. Yes.
Did I see this in Best Buy?
If you did, we're having issues.
We're doing
Go.
well.
One of the two.
What would a basic unit run?
As far as cost?
Right now we're doing with a leasing model. You're asking for the manufacturing cost or the actual buying cost?
Buying cost?
So we're looking at a leasing model right now, which would be a monthly revenue or a monthly lease, and then we'd actually do it as a year, and then it'd be a per inspection cost. So if you're out doing the actual inspections, every time you're running one of the units would be a cost associated with that.
So what happens if it breaks or?
It will never do that.
If something were to catastrophically happen, we'd actually be able to send you another unit as a loaner. You send back the one that was damaged in the crash. We would fix that one, and you'd still have one to be operational with.
I'm never going to leave you hanging.
Got it.
So, I know right now you have to be a FAA pilot or at least somehow license yourself to fly drones. Do you fly them yourselves or can the people who are leasing do their own inspections?
So one of the nice things about that is because it's confined space, it's out of the National Airspace System, so we would not necessarily have to have FAA licensed pilots. Unless you use the application outdoor, then we would have to have someone on staff. So it's a really cool environment with the FAA. We've kind of gotten off their constraints. So.
What's the market look like for confined space inspections versus non-confined space?
So it depends on the application. Right now we're focusing on the petrochemical industry, but there's a lot of other things outside of that. I think there's 1.5 million above ground storage tanks that have to follow regulations that need to be inspected every so often for formal internals. But there's other things like water towers, distillation towers, ship hulls, warehouses even. A lot of anywhere you want to be inside and up close to something is where technology would be applicable.
So what, are you in beta testing stage? Are you in launch stage? Where exactly are you in the business cycle here?
So right now we're finishing our final prototype and we're just about to go to market with our first launch customer. So we're still seeking the beta partners to be out in the field and get that feedback, get that testing. We're also continuing to develop our business leasing model to make sure it's going to be accepted by the industry and it's going to be able to charge for what we think it's worth.
What about military applications? Has anyone talked to you about that?
So we've got a couple opportunities with the oil and inspections for what the fuel systems are for the military, but as far as in particular with their operations, we haven't really done a whole lot of investigating with that quite yet, just because the DoD is not the easiest thing in the world to get involved with. So But we're open to those types of things. So if you got any cool ideas for us, we'll talk.
And I'll speak on top of that, the EPA, since you're doing a lot of research on top of the tanks, the EPA is involved with that, and you know a thing about that with your company.
Yeah.
But the hazmat and the close proximity to hazardous situations is also an area of interest to some government associations. Perfect.
There's one more question in there because they're waiting, so I'm gonna go ahead and.
And just a quick question, so does your your collision avoidance technology scale down to a smaller drone?
It can. Right now, we're comfortable with the size where it's at because of the payload. The high resolution camera that we have requires a little bit of thrust, power propulsion, excuse me. But we are seeking the technology, or at least how to scale the technology back down to a smaller vehicle to get even smaller confined spaces.